Hi, what we're doing today is I'm just kind of showing you some of the steps you got to do to put a Taurus fan in a 97 to 01 Cherokee XJ. One of the problems, of course, is that this is the AC mount, and also it has the mount on here for the fan pulley to operate the mechanical fan. Now right here you can see that this is what it basically looked like stock. This is after I've cut it off using a Sawzall. You could use a hacksaw, that's all you got. And then I sanded it smooth just to get rid of the saw marks, just make it look a little better. But you can see I actually took several attempts whacking at it. And finally, if you just stay flush back here in this area right here, that gets you behind this bearing right here. And you are not going to cut through that, so you got to get behind it. All right, and then so that's going to mount back down in here. Kind of like that. That's going to give you a lot of clearance, because that fan's got to fit down in here. Okay. Now also, what I'm doing, right here I got a, it's a sending unit adapter that you can stick in a radiator hose. I'm using both the high and the low speed on the Taurus fan. And I'm using this is a Saab thermo switch. This is a stock one, kicks in at 203, and then shuts off at 185 on low. Kicks on at 215 on high, and back off, I think it was at 206, where then the low speed takes over. I'm also going to have it wired so when the AC compressor kicks on, it will go into high speed automatically. Now I'll just show you what that looks like before and after. Here I got a couple of them. Here's what I bought off of eBay. This is a 32 millimeters, what you want for a Jeep. And that you want to go by this diameter right here. The first one I bought, which is that one right there, he said it was a 32 millimeter, but he was going by the diameter out here on this rim. Technically, it would work. You just tighten the clamp just a little bit more. But then I found a seller, and when I bought another one, I bought it from a different buyer. Bought a 34 millimeter, thinking that the one I had was actually 32 millimeter. So when I got it, it turned out to be 34, and that's the one I actually have in my Jeep. It fits a little snug. Actually, all I did is put a little WD-40 on the fitting, and it went right on in, and I'm just going to leave that. But I did go ahead and order an actual 32. There it is. And I used a belt sander, one of them bench top mount belt sanders, and started grinding it down, because what you got to do is get this thing pretty wide, because otherwise the surface of the thermal switch would be way off here off the sides. And the way they seal is on this upper little lip right up around here. So and it is hard to get it exactly perfect. I mean, you got to get that thing right on the money. So, and then plus you got to use a 22 millimeter by 1.5 metric tap for the threads here. So it's pretty huge, and it takes a 3/16 drill bit. Drill it out. And you got to really take your time with this. But then I also did use a little, I just want to let you know, I used a little sealant on this, because I don't even, like I say, to get this absolutely perfectly flat is very hard. The best way to do it, of course, would be with a mill. And most of us don't have one of those in their garage. So just borrow the neighbor's belt sander, and away I went. Another thing I'd like to point out, what you got to do is down here you got your, there you can see it, is a transmission line. This would be the cold side returning back. It originally mounted right under here and the line went right across here. Well, that's going to be in the way when you get that Taurus fan in there. So I just cut it back right there. You use a 3/8 inch compression with a 3/8 hose adapter. Clean up the fitting, or take that factory line out, and then clean it up real well, and then just install it. And then I just got my hose hooked back up. Now I also, if you've seen my other video, I got two Taurus, or I mean not Taurus, but STS Cadillac transmission coolers down here, right here. There's one stacked on behind the other. It's been working really well for me. I got part of the fan cut off and the mount put back into place. You see right there is where it was. And I'll put it back in. I got the original piece right here. Okay, and you can see it does have to be removed because it does stick out there quite a ways. So if you want to get that fan in there, it's got to come out. And then of course the fan belt has got to be rerouted because now you don't have this to ride over. And the belt ends up being about 15 inches shorter. Now another thing here, I'll try to get a shot of this. Let's see here. Okay, the belt's got to come down through this way. Now that bracket, I think I got a good shot of it. You got to grind away part of that. That belt isn't quite tight there, showing you how actual close that does get. But you take a die grinder and cut that out of there. It's that piece of metal down there that you got to clear. The only thing I don't like about this, the alternator doesn't have a whole lot of contact area now. That is the one thing that does suffer, and you lose a little bit on the crankshaft as well. To get my length, hang on, is I ran it the route that it's going to take, and then just overlapping this part of it, of the fan belt right here. Get the fan belt tight, make a mark on each, and measured the total length. I came up with about 79 3/4, so probably go with like an 80-inch belt. The stock one is 95 inches long. And I'm going to run down to Checker here, or AutoZone, a little bit and see what I can find. I just put the belt in, and I used a Dayco belt 5060795. The 795 indicates how long the belt is, 79.5 inches. That's what I came up for a measurement, and it turned out pretty nice. You may even be able to go with a 79-inch even. I may drop down to that because I am going to change out the power steering pulley to a slightly smaller one. But it actually, if you're not planning on doing that, the 795 works excellent. And then another thing I wanted to note out when you're installing this, right here, there's that tab for the original shroud. That gets cut. I just cut it back here with a Sawzall and bent it down. I'm going to actually use it and to secure the Taurus fan shroud. I drill a hole through here into the Taurus shroud. And also, you're going to cut a tab off of right over here where the original fan shroud was. And this is on the passenger side, right by the tank. You're going to cut that tab off. I just used a pair of tin snips there. There was quite a bit of trimming for me on the fan. shroud, especially you can see my transmission cooler right down here at the bottom. That kind of got in the way. And I also have a transmission oil filter over here, an additional one. I had to do a little trimming around that as well. Alright, here we are. There's the fan. Finally you get to see it, huh? I've done some of the mock-up on it. I got an old radiator that came out of my Jeep, my broken tank. So I replaced the radiator with a 3-core. So that does differ things because naturally the radiator's core is thicker. And I've trimmed off quite a few little pieces. If you look at, once you get your Taurus fan, there's a mounting point right here. That gets cut off, like that. There was a little piece up here that I went ahead and trimmed straight across. And let's see here. Now, for mine, because I have that transmission filter, I had to do a little trimming right in here. If you don't have that, you won't have to do it. You just leave it come straight on down. And then the lips that are around the edge of the shroud, they would be right in this area here. Okay, like that. The edge that goes all the way around. I went ahead and trimmed those off. You will definitely need to do that on the frame side, which would be this side right here, because this literally sits against the frame of the Cherokee. Then I mounted this piece here. This is what you're going to do to use to fasten it to the frame, or the unibody if you want to call it that, which it is. And what I did is just kind of took a speed square, laid it up against there, and you want to bring it out so the frame would be touching right there. And I have put this in there, and it does set in there really nice. Okay. One other thing you definitely need to notch out is for this. There's a piece that sticks out on the frame that you'll need to cut out. Let's see, it ended up being about 2 5/8 inches to this point right here, and I believe it was 1 1/2, 1 3/8, if I remember right. Yeah, about 1 3/8 to that edge right here. Okay, and I did several cuts on that, you know, kind of experimenting, and you may need to do the same. Another notch I had to do was that right there. The radiator sat down in there like that. Now it turns out on the 3-core, I may have not had to do that because it's so much thicker. Okay. Now also I did trim off. It drops right here, comes down, and there's a lip that goes all the way down. And I thought I needed to remove that, and I did, because I couldn't get the unit, this fan, into the compartment here. We'll take it over here and stick it in here. But what happens, the reason I thought I needed to take it off, because this fan was hitting the air compressor. It's like, there ain't no way that's going in there. Well, it turns out you got to unbolt that air compressor, the AC air compressor, and move it back. So you have to remove the 4 bolts that hold it in and move it back a little bit. And actually you got to take the belt off, or just off to the side to get it in there. Now these pieces right here, I added on. Let me get a shot. There we go. There's just some rubber grommet stuff I've had laying around, and it's just to get a better seal. Now that's because I ended up trimming that lip off of there. I would first try not trimming that off and see if you can get the radiator in. Again, pull back the air conditioning compressor and see what you can do there. And then otherwise I'd leave that piece on there. Alright, now let's see if we can get this thing in here. Again, this is, another thing I want to point out. I'm dropping in there. There's a notch on this side here that you may have to put in. And I used one of these, I don't even know what you call these damn things. I know you've seen them before. They're always on sheet metal, and you got like a nut. And you're going to use that for your mount on this side right here. The one I pointed out before, right down here, you're going to use that metal tab that's down here. I'm going to just run a screw right through that slot and then into here. So you can secure that side of the fan. So you have this mounting point right here. You've got a mounting point here, and then you're going to have the two factory ones up here. Another thing I used, I just had some angle iron laying around. It's actually almost like sheet metal, but you don't need nothing really that strong. This is probably only like 16 gauge, maybe 14, and it's 1.5 by 1 inch. And just to let you know, you got 1 1/4 inch clearance between this area here and the top of the hood when it's closed, and it diminishes as you go down in this area here, this area of the hood. So that lip, that top mounting point right here, you can use these two original bolts. I got the holes drilled right here. You can see how I got that piece mounted. You want to be careful you don't get your radiator core as you're putting this in and damage it. This is really hard to do with one hand. There we go. Okay. Okay, that's kind of just sitting in there. Now to give you an idea of what kind of clearances you're talking about here. The only ones that are really kind of tight are down here. Harmonic balancer is one of them. I mean, that's probably one of the closer spots right there from the motor to that bolt. And actually I ground that bolt down just a little bit. I took a little bit off of that. And your harmonic balancer is going to be about like that. If you can see that shot right there. It looks like about 3/8 of an inch. One thing I would recommend, check out your driver's side motor mount, or the left side motor mount. They're the first ones to go. In fact, I got a Jeep sitting here. I replaced the one in that. It actually ended up damaging one of the AC lines from the mechanical fan. It was coming over here and putting a big old dent in it. So I'd recommend doing that. I am running I believe they're called the Daystar motor mounts. Right there. They're almost solid. I mean, you got polyurethane bushing or whatever it is, and you end up with a little bit more vibration, especially at idle. Not so much when you're driving. But that motor ain't moving anywhere. And all you got to do is run one screw into that side there. It should be good. And you can see I'm running the factory skid plate. It's going to be all right. There's where my oil filter is for our transmission fluid. And that'll actually probably be helping out my transmission coolers. I'll be able to, you can almost see through that fan. I don't know if you can or not, but you can see my transmission cooler sitting back there. So it's going to be helping pull air for those. So the next step will be just go ahead and bolt this in and get the AC pump back in place, the fan hook, belt hooked back up. And I actually already have my wiring done. I'm using the factory plug. It's down in here. And I did all that first because this is a daily driver for me. So I got the wiring and everything in there. It does take some time. And got everything mocked up before I went to town on this, trying to get this done over in a weekend. So I can fire this thing up and, hopefully go to work. Alright, hope you enjoy. Thanks.